r/AskReddit. What is the most ducked up thing you have eavesdropped? I was a kid, maybe 10ish, and I was homesick from school one day. My dad left my door ajar to hear me in case I started to vomit. He thought I was asleep, but I could hear him talking to his best male friend at the time out in our family room. Dad's friend was telling him about how he cheated on his wife and how good it was, and he asked my dad if he ever cheated on my mom. Even at that age I knew it was wrong and my heart raced as I listened for his answer. To this day, I'm in my 30s. I am very proud of my dad for saying no. I had a chance to. My brother's wife put her hand between my legs but I shoved her away. You know I love my mom's name. I never did tell anyone about that. My parents are still together. First off, I wear hearing aids. When I was in elementary school, I had a mic that was on a necklace and my teacher would wear it. It transmits to my hearing aid. Anyways, she was talking about her weekend out drinking and sleeping with strangers. It was worst when she realized she left the mic on. When I was a little kid, like 5 years old, I really wanted this stupid stamp set in the Family Dollar. My mom and I walked there for her to buy tampons. We found both in the clearance bin. I overheard her talking to the lady at the cash register when price checking them about how she only had money for one of the items and that she was going to buy me the stamp set over the tampons that she needed. I'm 21 now and I never told my mom that I heard that. She always pretended that we had enough money, but she would skip meals or give up her stuff to make sure we had enough, and it breaks my heart to think about it. I know it's not super ducked up, but still. My husband and I were at McDonald's. We took our son to the play place to try to let him burn off energy so we could finish grocery shopping. A mother was in there with her 3 kids. One by one she would make each one of them sit down and was interrogating them. Where did your dad sit at the spring concert? Who did he sit by? Did he sit by Mason's mom? Did he talk to any of the other moms? Was he laughing and smiling when he talked to Carter's mom? Did you guys come right home afterwards? She was writing it all down. Each child was not allowed to go play unless they answered her questions. WTF. I was listening to 2 of my kindergarten students talk about Christmas the day before break. One asked, "Do you believe in Santa?" The other replied, "Yes, but he doesn't come to my house because I'm in foster care." I was fixing a woman's computer when she got the phone call that her mother had suddenly died. She went from powerful executive assistant to fragile little girl in 3 seconds. It was heartbreaking. I've been bitten in the nuts by 2 separate Scottish terriers. I've never wanted to chase someone down the street and ask to hear the rest of the story so bad in my life. Edit. Thanks for all the upvotes. But only now do I realize that I didn't even follow the directions of the post. This is a story of when I overheard 2 people walking by me sit on the street. Not eavesdropping. Oh. Well, you duckers seem to like the story anyhow. LOL:P. I was in a holding cell in Washington, D.C., and I overheard a guy bragging to the other prisoners about the murder he committed. He said some dude was hitting up his girl's cell phone, so he used her phone to arrange a meeting with the dude in her car under some bridge. He was waiting in the back seat of the car when the dude got there. He out his girl's phone in the front seat as bait. When the dude went in the car, he cut his throat, then burned the car. I'll never forget his deep, raspy voice and the pride with which he spoke. It's haunting. Sitting behind 2 teenagers on the train. Guy, you let him come inside of you. Girl, well, not all the way. I finally understand teen pregnancy. Dunno if this qualifies, but it should. I was photographer at a wedding, and while the bride was getting ready I heard 2 bridesmaids, mid-20s, talking. One said to the other about how she had recently found out that beans, probably as in the baked variety, were not bits of potato as she had always thought. They're ducking beans. I was at Disney in high school and I heard a guy say to someone, "You're tiggity but ain't good enough to eat, so put your shoes back on." I'm 35 and still have no idea what that meant. Not ducked up, just sad. Around 2004 or 2005, I was at a meeting. During a bathroom break, I heard 2 men talking. One of them had a brother who was killed in the 9/11 attack on the Pentagon. Shortly after the attack, the brother's widow gave birth to their 2nd child. A year or so later, the mother died of cancer. The man speaking adopted his brother's kids. He and his wife had never planned on having kids, but they stepped up to raise them. It was a big adjustment, but he loved the kids and was doing the best he could for them. When I was like 13, I was over at a friend's house. His little sister's room was between his and the bathroom. So eventually, I go to the bathroom at one point and overheard his 5-year-old sister apparently talking to one of her dolls, giving the following instructions. And now you cut the arms off and push the eyes in so he can never ever see again. He doesn't deserve to. I do hope she was talking about another doll. Freaked me the duck out. When the police showed up at my door to tell me that my upstairs neighbor was dead, I overheard the EMTs say we're going to have to double bag him. Then I heard my neighbor's double bagged body being dragged down the narrow staircase because a stretcher wouldn't fit. Thump, thump, thump. I picked up the house phone to find a conversation already in progress, and that's how I learned my stepdad was having an affair with his brother's wife. As a 14-year-old super shy busboy at a restaurant in my hometown, terrified of the early 20s waitresses, setting up a banquet while the waitresses are chatting in the kitchen, with the door open, overheard the following. What do you think of that new kid? Pittsburghed? Is he retarded or something? Or he's cute? I think maybe he's just slow. Took a few years to get over that one. A bunch of junkies planning how they are gonna rob someone for money to get their next hit. I got out of there real fast. When I was maybe 10 or 11, I overheard my stepmom talking to my friend's mom about my puppy that had recently disappeared. I learned the puppy had not run away, but that my stepmom had drove it to the middle of nowhere and set it free because she didn't want to have a puppy in the house. Edit. This has gotten a lot more responses than I expected. I am very shocked and saddened by all of your similar stories. For those of you asking about my stepmom, she is literally the worst human being I have ever met. It's worth mentioning that she has gotten rid of my possessions before without asking, giving my clothes or toys to Goodwill while I was at school. I have asked her a few times about what really happened, and I give her the opportunity to come clean, but she is always evasive about the whole thing. She will eventually get what's coming to her. I hope she suffers as much as possible in her life and dies painfully. One co-worker to another, as I walked in. I mean, don't get me wrong, I don't like black people, I just don't think I could join the clan. My brother overheard my dad tell my mom he wished I had gone to Vietnam. That put at least 10 layers of security between us for over 10 years. I caught my dad choking his chicken when I was in high school. I woke up really early and went to get a drink. I walked down the stairs and saw that the TV was on and playing one of those commercials for Girls Gone Wild. I looked at the couch and my dad was jerking it, but didn't notice me because my dad was pretty old and had bad hearing. I don't know if he saw me, but I rushed to the bathroom and stayed quiet in the dark until I thought he was finished. LOL. I felt bad for him and wanted him to at least finish. Best single dad in the world and I miss him and I always laugh at that memory of him. I was a waitress and I just took an order from a table of students that were all 18 plus. One of them seemed pretty dim with the questions she was asking me, but nothing too stupid. One of her friends ordered duck gyoza. As I walked away I heard her ask her friends what a duck was, and them start to explain. How the hell do you get to be over 18 and not know what a ducking duck is? My brother breaking up with his girlfriend. I learned from their conversation that they used condoms for sex even though she was pretty allergic. Don't worry, you'll go down in history from my 4-year-old on Christmas Eve. Curious. I rounded the corner. She was playing in her play kitchen stove with a frying pan. In the pan was the head of a toy reindeer with a shiny red nose. My dad's girlfriend is a special education teacher. I heard her telling my dad about a student she had with Down syndrome. The kid had pretty shitty parents and lived in the rough part of town. Anyways, he never brushed his teeth and as a result, his teeth were rotted and he had to get them all pulled. He was given pain medication, but his mother ended up taking all the pills herself. The boy would be in so much pain in class that he would have to be taken out of class because he couldn't stop yelling. He yelled so much that the stitches in his mouth ultimately ripped. As far as I know, the boy still lives with his mother. I don't know why nothing was done about this. It makes me angry. Edit. Thank you for all the replies. I overheard this just last night. I'll be sure to ask my dad's girlfriend about specifics and hopefully, if no action has already been taken, see if something can be done. Update. I asked her about it. She did report it, but for some reason or another, the mother still has custody. She didn't go into it much and acted as though it wasn't something she wanted to talk about, so I didn't ask further questions. Overheard my wife saying you look really handsome, babe. She was on a FaceTime call with a guy she was cheating on me with and didn't hear me come in early from work. Still the hardest thing I've ever heard. I listened in the hallway for a few minutes, then packed a bag and left 10 years of marriage and we have a 2-year-old. It's pretty insane. Edit. Thanks for all the love. I moved out. Divorce is final in October. She moved in with him. Life's rough sometimes. It'll get better. Lots of sad stories in this thread, so lem lighten things up a bit. I work from home for a company based in Los Angeles, and each morning my engineering team convenes for a meeting. The new guy forgot to mute his headset, and we all torturously ignored him masturbating for 5 minutes. Our meeting was like, yep, so staccato breathing. I committed those changes to SV staccato breathing in. Today, I'll be small groany working on changes to the staccato breathing, increasing pace mobile report, shuddering sigh. I should mention that if someone is talking, or driving, or whatever in the background, we always let them know they need to go to on mute. In this case though, 15 people sat on the phone and talked over him. Not sure if it was a lack of guts, or we just didn't have the heart to embarrass him, but there was no mistaking what we heard. Sat on a bus home from work a couple of years back. An attractive young lady, blonde in her 20s and dressed in smart business gear, got on and took a seat. If you'd seen the state of the bus, usually you'd understand why she caught my attention. Anyway, she picks up the phone and starts having a full conversation. The biggest 180 on a first impression I've ever had. Starts talking about her 2 kids who got taken into care because her and her ex couldn't stop beating each other up. The cracker of a quote was, "I'm not even sure they'll let me keep the one inside me yet." All this was a soundtrack to a silent bus. Not really eavesdropping when it's so in your face, but shocking all the same as this fairly normal 20-something revealed openly her mental home life. I was sitting next to a cutesy couple in 10th grade English class and I saw her mouth the words impregnant. I can see the plane crash going through his eyes. I'm sure there is worse I've heard, but my memory is that of a goldfish. Edit. In case you are wondering, they have a happy ending. They moved in with each other down at their family's in Idaho or Ohio or something. They were very sweet people. Also, I took an extra English class and they doubled up on English that year. Our high school worked with 4 periods per semester with different classes, so it was technically an 11th grade English class, and they were seniors. Sorry I didn't include it, so it's not as bad, but there was already a 10th grader with a 1.5-year-old, or in new mother language, 18-month-old kid, so it won't be surprising to me if they were actually 10th graders. I woke up around midnight on Easter when I was about 6 to hopefully get a glimpse of the Easter bunny, only to hear my mom crying to my dad on the phone, divorced, to come get my brother and I because she has no money to get us any chocolate. She was hysterical. I went back to bed and pretended to be surprised when my dad was there as the morning to come get us. He told us that the Easter bunny got mixed up about what house we were going to be at. I was at a music festival a few years back, asleep in the tent at about 9:30 am and I woke up to 2 guys speaking in panicked voices outside the tent saying, "I know we gave him the pills but it wasn't our fault, he took them all. It's not our fault. We brought him to the first aid tent. What more could we do?" And more to that effect. They also said that they had written on his arm that he had taken 5 pills and dropped him at the first aid tent. As soon as I heard them leave, I stuck my head out of the tent to see my best friend with her head out of her tent, both of us wondering what the duck that was about. Then, we found a bag of white powder and about 25 pills in baggies which these guys had just dropped to get rid of any evidence. Maybe an hour later, we heard that someone had died at the festival from taking 5 pills and overdosing. The penny dropped as we joined the dots between the conversation we had overheard, the discarded drugs and the death. Very creepy. Once I got a ride in the casual commute lane with 2 women in a gold Mercedes. I sat in the back while they carried on with their conversation. They spent about 10 minutes talking about a friend of theirs who was looking so great after she had lost a ton of weight. After a pause, one of them said, "Too bad about the cancer." 3 girls were together at a bus stop. I was behind them. One was telling a story as the others listened. Girl number 1. She called me a dirty, lying horse and she threw her bottle at me and it shattered on the wall, nearly hitting me. 2 and 3. Oh my god, for real. 1. Yep. Then I told her to duck off and choke on a coke before I slammed the door and left. 2. Whoa. What a beach. 1. I know, right? That's the last time I go visit my aunt during withdrawals. My boss ducking the secretary in the break room. This morning my brother overheard 2 schoolboys talking about Chloe refusing to wank off Jake, so Jake asked her friend instead. They were about 13 years old. Heard this conversation at my dining hall. Don't eat fries that you dropped on the floor. That's disgusting, Sarah. I've literally have had my tongue in your butthole. I think I'm fine. A very young girl gave her mother a picture she drew as a gift while on public transportation. The mother then rudely rejected the gift. That made me quite sad. When I was 16, I served a customer who was switching between ordering food with me and organizing for somebody to go beat up a guy for hitting a significant female in his life. Overheard the end of a conversation that completed with a very large, emo, gay Mexican boy telling an incredibly skinny girl, and then I said to her, "That's the bed I did your brother in," and I slapped her in her face. Once overheard a few people talking about kidnaps on my work. They were talking about doing it. I work at a restaurant in Brazil and there were 4 guys talking about kidnapping someone. They were dead serious. I overheard them though a thin wall. Worst part? They were cops. They still come to eat here from time to time and are notoriously dirty. One of them have a $500,000 car while getting less than $2,000 a month. I never did anything about it. Who would I call? The other dirty cops? It's not creepy if you go into her locker and check her timetable. I was traveling with a friend, through Honduras, and in the hostel we were staying at we met this cool Aussie lesbian. One morning they were chatting right next to me as I woke up but didn't immediately get up and start talking. I realized they were talking about me, my friend, who I had known for a few years, and had a FWB thing with in the past, was telling her that she thought I was transgender. I'm not. It was really strange to hear someone tell an almost complete stranger her opinions about my own personal gender identity. Was at a 24 diner/breakfast joint in DC on a Sunday. A guy and 2 trashy looking women at the counter next to us were planning out a porno shoot. Not joking about it or anything. Like it was all set, and they were just figuring out some details. One time my mom told me to text my dad about something. I completely forgot what it was, and I saw just a shit ton of dirty messages. RIP. Soul and innocence. Not ducked up, but funny. Sat at a booth in a Panera behind 2 older ladies 50-60ish. One goes, "He said that was the worst tasting granola I've ever had." And I said, "That wasn't granola, it was potpourri." Everyone at our table died laughing. Edit. CNT spiel. Found out my dad has a single ball. An old Jewish couple was arguing at the grocery store about whether or not they should buy X brand of cookies, even though Y brand was 50 cents cheaper. The man said if he had married Edith instead of his wife, Edith would have let him get the nicer brand of cookies. His wife replied she could have married Xavier and actually been wealthy and not living in a rat-infested apartment. WTF. While traveling in my native state in India, I heard 2 men talking about their daughter/sister who had married a boy from another caste in a city our bus was heading to. After talking for a while how she dishonored them and their family name, I suddenly spotted something poking from one of the dude's pocket, a revolver. I immediately thought of the worst thing they could do and had them both arrested when we arrived in the city. Guess what they were gonna do? While riding the train, I once listened to a guy talking on the phone who was embroiled in an elaborate revenge plot. I could only hear his side of the conversation, but he was clearly aggrieved by a former girlfriend and her family, who were collectively guilty of persecuting him. This was as specific as he got. As the train plowed on, he revealed his plan to revenge himself. Turns out he had a sex tape, which he planned to release on the internet. Then, To complete his revenge, he would move to California. It was unclear how this fit in. Perhaps he feared retaliation. All he was waiting for was his next paycheck and the plan would be ready to execute. He kept circling back to the sex tape. After repeatedly describing the vile acts he'd performed on the poor girl, our hero abruptly requested the person on the phone make spaghetti and Texas toast for dinner and concluded the call with a cheery, "Bye mom." My brother and I sat on the back stairs and listened to my father holding a knife to my mother's throat. They had both gotten drunk that afternoon, a summer Saturday, and had gotten into some kind of tiff at the dinner table. My mother threw her plate at my father. It bounced on the table in front of him and broke into shards, one of which cut him pretty badly on the arm, and he was explaining to her, with a knife to her throat, that she was to never, ever disrespect him again. He then called all the kids downstairs and made her formally apologize to us for being a bitch. I was about 13 when this happened. Not ducked up, just funny. Had entered a meeting room before meeting began. Everybody was sort of wandering, chatting, and there was a couple of people I didn't know. Completely bald guy, office light reflected from his head bald, and a girl. They were talking quietly and then the girl exclaimed in inexplicable agitation, "But, are you blonde?" in general, and everybody in the room became really quiet. We all wanted to know, is he, in general? Whoa, you made it to the end? You're a ducking beast. I'll cuss you a deal. Smash like and subscribe for more curated content. It's free and that's a great price.